यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य
ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्म विद्या संप्रदाय कर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः सर्वोपप्लवरहित प्रज्ञान घन प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्माहमस्मि सोहमस्मि ब्रह्माहमस्मि। ओम प्रपन्न पारिजाताय तोत्र वेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। May the Almighty Shri Lord Venkateshwara bestow all kinds of prosperity, health, wealth and eternal happiness with Paripurna Lakshmi Katakshams to you and the entire your family and friends. Let us begin Bhagavad Gita, verse number 20 of 14th chapter. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha गुणान् एतानतीत्यत्रीन् देहि देहसमुद्भवान् जन्म मृत्युजरा दुःखैर्विमुक्तो मृतम् अश्नुते. In the last words, Bhagavan has given a solid understanding about Gunatita Vastu. Now the total journey, which we call it a spiritual journey, is between only from ego to the superior consciousness. Now the whole journey of a spiritual aspect is between ego to pure consciousness. That's all. The verse number 19, it makes very clear the doership and the enjoyership only belongs to the ego. Ego means what? Ahankara. Ahankara means we have to remember the explanation which we saw in the last session. Ahankara, the reflection, the reflected consciousness which is endowed with body-mind complex. The Ahankara which is victimized by three gunas. The name of the chapter also three gunas. What is that? Rajoguna, Tamoguna, then Sattva-guna. The Sattva-guna comes in the beginning. Now the Ahankara which is victimized by these three gunas owns doership. Now the doership really doesn't exist in the consciousness. Where do it exist? The reflection doesn't have the liveliness. The bondage which is experienced by us is due to these three gunas. It means the doership is given by these three gunas. Therefore, Bhagavan says, Anyam kartaram drashta nanupashyati. We don't see a doer other than the gunas. Because the consciousness never is endowed with or mingled with karma. It is gunathita. Gunathita means what? Beyond. Beyond means the word must be understood. Always we use the word beyond in the sense of distance between something. Now what is the distance we do have between Ahankara to Atma? Atma means our real nature. What is the distance? The distance may be thousands of janmas. The distance may be the years, maybe many days or many hours. How can this distance be covered? I told you there is only one means to cover this distance, because it is not the superficial distance, it is not a physical distance. This distance is very subtle. That distance is due to ajnana, avidya. Avidya, that's all. Avidya means what? Ignorance. This distance is mithya distance. There is no distance at all. But you can live thousands of years to the pursuit of Atma. You just check with all the activities which are done in the name of spiritual life. or spirituality. The motto of the goal of all those activities to cover this distance, to gain the maturity, to come out of the ahankara, to overcome the nature of ahankara. What is the nature of ahankara? To keep ourselves busy with this guna traya material, to make us busy. Always this body tend to bring fear about the death. We have to keep our body healthy, that's okay. That doesn't mean that you have to start pampering the body. It will draw more attention, always drawing attention. Your mind draws your attention because it is endowed with so many imbalanced emotions. Body, mind, even intellectual aspects, intellect, all of them, they draw attention. This ahankara, which is endowed with doership, the doership and enjoyership, this both won't allow us to turn our attention towards that pure consciousness. They increase the distance between our real nature, okay, and our false nature. Now the journey from ahankara to atma is called a spiritual journey. Therefore, Bhagavan Krishna uses a different way. The bandha, bondage, is due to doership, not even through karma. You note this point. The karma doesn't bring bondage. In the beginning stage, we learned the karma brings bondage. The karma is not an alive thing to bring bondage. Karma is jadam. Then how can it bring bondage? No. That doership, the misunderstanding which is given by the ego, by ahankara alone, which comes in the combination of body-mind complex, owns the doership. Now the body-mind complex means what? Three gunas. They are nothing but three gunas. This is a different perception, The world is nothing but of three gunas. My consciousness, which I experience in limited way, is occupied by three gunas, colored by three gunas. We have to be very careful to understand these words because it's a very important words. These both words, 19 and 20th. Gunebhyaha kartaram anyaha na pashyanti. The seeker becomes aware these gunas alone causes for the doership. Therefore I said, Gunebhyaha kartaram anyam na anupashyati. The doer to be none other than the gunas. There we have to realize. And this is Vedanta. Vedanta needs a little bit effort. The effort to analyze, the effort to do inquiry. Now the body doesn't have kartrutva buddhi. Kartrutva buddhi means doership. When you eat, we automatically have that I am eating. I am eating is the understanding, but I am the eater. That is also the base of, means the foundation of understanding. I am a speaker, you are the listener. I am the speaker, I am the walker. There is no word walker. I am the person one who walk. And I am a singer. This is, we mix our consciousness with the action, then the doership is won by it. It's very subtle. Swamiji is very confusing. Can you give us a very small example? Just mere example. You lift something. When you lift something, when we lift our book, automatically there is a doership that I am lifting. So we cannot have the understanding of somebody is lifting. I cannot say that somebody is lifting. So automatically I should have this understanding that I am lifting. I need to have doership for the sake of transaction, but I need not to become victim of that doership. That's what Bhagavan says. We have to use the doership because the doership is due to what? Three gunas. Gunas causes for the doership and gunas bring the enjoyership too. Now the conclusion is Ahankara, which is occupied three gunas, has doership and enjoyership. So what? That brings karma phala and bondage, suffering, and it brings birth and death. I don't bother to be born again. If you are not bothering, that's fantastic. You are a celestial being. You should not murmur. You should not think that something is wrong. I'm into problem. You should not long for something. You should be completely satisfied. Your mind is to be endowed with a peace. Tranquility. Is it there like that? Absolutely, not. We are undergoing modifications. Body threatens us. Mind threatens us. And world seems to be threatening us. The only one solution, we have to understand world properly. World is nothing but three guna. The effect of three gunas. Effect of three gunas means what? They are nothing but three gunas. Three gunas. The nature of three guna is what? To bind. The nature of body to bind, to make us to be busy with that. The world never allow us to set a journey from ego to the consciousness. They never allow. They keep ourselves very busy with this world and emotions and all our goals. All the goals which are fixed by Ahankara, again they are nothing but occupied by three gunas. They are none other than three gunas. The Kartrutva, Bhoktrutva, so it is to be, they are to be understood well by the seeker. Now the seeker has only one solution to have a high jump. What is that high jump? With the help of Shastra, just he has to drop all allay with this three gunas. How can it be dropped? By having a proper realization. That's what Param gunebhyaha param yahaveti. By having the realization of that which is beyond three guna. Now beyond three guna means the beyond. Again I am making you to understand beyond. It gives the sense of distance. No, it's not distance. Now you see beyond, understand it. See, can you see my palm with the fingers, my hands? Okay. So now the hands is pervaded by light, isn't it? The light is pervading my hand. Now if I fold and spread my hands, the light is not affected by the movement of the hand, and the size of the fingers are not affected by the quality of the hands, are not affected by the light. So light is beyond my hand. Though light is all pervasive, but it is beyond, unaffected by my hands and movements of the hands. Like the consciousness which is all pervasive, not only in this sharira, in all over, with all sharira, that is endowed with asangatvam. Asangatvam means which is free from all kinds of attribute. Okay, that is to be understood. When the person who understands this, he attains my nature. Means what? Moksha is the nature. Now we have to have an understanding, proper understanding, the spiritual journey between two things. One is fast, from the limitations to unlimited state. That's all. The understanding we have to gain from the verse number 19. Now we can begin verse number 20. Gunan etan yatrin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkaihi vimukto mritam ashnute. Etan gunan, etan trin gunan atitya dehi vimuktaha amritam ashnute. That is the content of this verse. By crossing over these three gunas, the individual of body attains moksha or becomes mukta purusha, becomes a liberated one, and attains amritam means moksha. So two things happens. He gets rid of something and he gains something. So both are one and the same. When he is able to drop three gunas and It means what? He is endowed with gunatitaha. It is not in a physical aspect. It is identifying properly with the self. Therefore, Bhagavan brings very carefully, Yetan gunan, these three gunas, sato guna, rajo guna, tamo guna. Where do we find this sato guna, rajo guna? You look at your sharira, look at outside, whatever you are looking at, whatever the things can be objectified by us, they are nothing but three gunas. Our mind is occupied with the three gunas. Our consciousness, which transacts, is nothing but impact of three gunas. Now, three guna means what? My ahankara itself, three guna. The whole sets, my ahankara to prakriti. Everything is nothing but three gunas. All these three gunas, deha samudbhavan. The three gunas which are the cause for originating the sharira or origination of the body, which brings janma, mrityu, jara, dukkhaihi, which is endowed with all this birth, death, and the modifications between birth and death. And the duration between death and birth also comes under three gunas alone. Therefore, 8th chapter, it discusses about the death. What exactly the death? Death is nothing but tamoguna, becoming ignorant of everything. We have two kinds of death, the temporary death and permanent death. When we sleep in this body and we wake from this body alone, it is known as a sleep. Then when we sleep here, waking up with some other body, here it is considered as a death, there it is considered as a birth. Because tamoguna occupies very strongly us. We are occupied by tamoguna. We are endowed with limited knowledge. Knowledge belongs to satoguna. Action belongs to rajoguna. We act according to our knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Why? Because tamoguna is occupying too much. We sleep every day due to tamoguna. We are ignorant to so many things because of tamoguna. We are knowledgeable to few things because of satoguna. Now, the size of, the density of tamoguna is more than satoguna. But satoguna, which helps us to overcome even tamoguna, only is possible when we are endowed with the anugraha of Ishvara. Ishvara's anugraha, Shastra's anugraha, and Guru's anugraha. That's all. See, all modifications can be crossed over once you realize or once you are able to transcend yourself through three gunas. That's all the meaning from verse number 20. Finally, what is the short understanding? I understand my ahankara, which is nothing but the unity of, or it goes with the setup of this body, mind, and sense complex. It is not my product, it is not my part, it is not my property. Okay, now ahankara is not me. The original me is beyond ahankara. That original me is me. When we understand this, automatically ahankara goes away. Ahankara goes away means what? Ahankara will be there. It will continue up to our last time, up to our death. But the ahankara loses to bother us. The ahankara becomes slave to us. Otherwise, ahankara becomes yajamana. It will rule us. Now, after a realization takes place, ahankara becomes a slave, means a worker to us. So when ahankara is the supreme among these three gunas. Ahankara is the agent. He is the representative person on behalf of all three gunas. The world is only enjoyed through ahankara. Ahankara is the means, ahankara is a tool, ahankara is the equipment, ahankara is the representative of all samsara. Now that ahankara must be kept away by having the realization of the self. That's what is explained in these words. We will go to the next words. Arjuna uvacha kairlingay strin gunan etan atito bhavati prabho kimacharah katham chetan strin gunanati vartate. Arjuna says, Arjuna asks the question now, Kaihi lingaihi strin gunan etan atitaha bhavati prabho. How can I understand a person who has overcome these three gunas? What would be the indication? What can be the indication we can find from the person who has crossed over three gunas? How can we understand him? Not only that, kim acharah katham cha etan three gunan ativartate. What kind of lifestyle he wants? After overcoming these three gunas, what would be the life? How the life would be to that person? What kind of life there will be? I don't see anything, because everything is occupied by gunas, means there won't be any life at all. What is the indication? How can I understand him? He is asking for his sake. That helps us to realize. So what would be the continuation after the realization of gunatitaha? That's what is explained. Let us read it. Shri Bhagavan uvacha prakashancha pravrittincha mohameva cha pandava nadveshti sampravrittani nanivrittani kankshati. So from these words up to the verse number 25, Bhagavan gives gunatita lakshana. The definition of gunatitaha. The chapter began with the lakshanam of gunatraya viveka. The chapter began with a definition of gunas. Now gunatita is to be understood well. Now he says the nature of triguna is what? Prakasham, pravritti, moham. Prakasham means what? Knowledge. Pravritti means what? Actions. Moham means what? Delusion. Pandava. Hey Pandava, the benefit of these three gunas, or the nature of three gunas, are this: nadveshti sampravrittani na nivrittani kankshati. All these three will do only two things in our life: pravritti, nivritti. Okay? It will make us to enter into something, it will make us to come out of something. That is what, pravritti, nivritti. Both pravritti, nivritti. Nadveshti sampravrittani, na nivrittani kankshati. He won't desire for pravritti, he won't be attached with nivritti. So these two things will happen with a jnani. Now finally, gunatita lakshanam means what? The person who is called jnani is to be understood as gunatita. That's what is explained. So he will be careful with his pravritti and nivritti. Now the transaction is divided into two technical terms, pravritti and nivritti. Pravritti means to begin something, to enter into something, to start something. Nivritti means to come out of something. So this is what called life. In whole life, what we do pravritti and we do nivritti. We want to get something, we want to give up something. That's what. But the jnani won't be affected by this two reality of a transaction. His transaction will be something different. Okay? That we will learn from next session tomorrow. Harihi Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.